Hey there, it's Mackenzie, your host of Winning. We're looking for sponsors for the podcast. If you have a business that you would like to promote to thousands of people, send us an email at podcastwinning@gmail.com or send us a message on social media. I cannot wait to hear from you. Now on to the show.
Winning is your guide to making it in business. Join our award-winning host and entrepreneur, Mackenzie Kilshaw, and special guests in casual conversations that will educate and inspire you on your business journey. Winning will help you learn the hard lessons the easy way with guidance from celebrated entrepreneurs and business leaders. It's fun. It's informative. It's winning.
Hello, it's Mackenzie Kilshaw, the host of Winning. I am so excited to be here with the business plan part 3. So I thought maybe I could do this in a 3-part series. Honestly, it's going to take me 4 parts, but I'm super pumped to be here. If you haven't listened yet to part 1 or 2, I suggest you go back and listen to those episodes as well. And in episode 1, I did let you know that my business plan was 77 pages long. So I totally did underestimate the time that it would take for me to tell you about it. So we're a few episodes into the podcast, and I just wanted to say a huge shout out. We have people all over North America, someone from Colombia listening. So thank you for listening. I love to see all these places. Swift Current, Saskatchewan, where I live, Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, where I lived for a long time. We've got Toronto, Ontario, Calgary, and Edmonton, Alberta, Redmond, Washington, New York City, New York, Walla Walla, Washington, Columbus, Indiana, Sun City, Arizona, East End, Saskatchewan, Marysville, Ohio, wherever you are listening from. Thank you. I appreciate it. And send me a message, a DM on Instagram or through Facebook, or comment on one of our posts and tell me what topics do you want to hear about, because I am here to help the entrepreneur, to help business people like me that didn't really know what to do, or were struggling a little bit, or just needed some inspiration. So please send me your topics. I want to hear from you. Tell me what you like. Tell me what I can improve on. Just give me all the feedback, because I'm super excited to hear from you guys. So getting back to business plans, in today's episode, we're going to be covering development and operations strategies, which will include the human resource component of your business plan. Obviously, we're business plan focused on this episode, but I'm going to have more in-depth episodes in the future on these topics as well as some special guests. Also, if you're knowledgeable in an area, send me a message. We can have you on. Okay, we're starting with the development strategy, which is for both your location and your products and services. So we're getting right into the nitty-gritty here. So first of all, where are you going to be located? So this is either your physical space or where your product will be sold if you're creating a product. So do you need to build a space? Can you renovate a space? Find a new space? Maybe you want to expand and you just need something larger. What are the risks for this? So it can either be financial, obviously money, or time spent. What if something goes wrong? You have to know what your risks are, because you always want to mitigate your risks. So make sure that you have a list of things that could be risks. What if it takes longer than you expected? How much is it going to cost you? And what if those costs are more than you anticipated? And what about your products? What if supplies don't come through, or you can't get your items in on time? COVID really messed things up for a lot of people. So what are you going to do? This could be a huge problem for you. If you're opening a new retail business and you've got nothing to sell, what are you going to do? Are you relying on others to be successful? And what if they don't come through? So if you're relying on somebody else to create something for you, what happens if it doesn't work out, or you get it and it's not what you expected? What's your plan for that? What's your timeline? You need a timeline here. How long will all of this take? And what if it's done sooner, in all reality, later than expected? What happens? Are you going to have to pay rent and you're not even opened? What are going to be the ramifications of that? The thing that I have found with both time and money is that they seem to always take longer and cost more than you're prepared for. So make sure that you've included that in your projections. Give yourself a buffer. give yourself a percentage for something that happens, right? The go wrong fund. If you don't have enough funds to begin with, you're not off to a good start. So if you don't have a go wrong fund and something goes wrong, what are you doing? Where's that money coming from? And how are you going to survive that? Okay, so a huge part of the business plan, and frankly, your success, is your management plan. And I honestly think a lot of people don't think about this. They just think, yeah, I'm going to run it and I'm going to get employees and that's going to be that. But it's not that easy. And I can tell you from experience, I had a store with for 8 years with employees. It's not that easy to just rely on employees. So first and foremost, who is in charge here? So who's the boss? Really, who's the boss? So I know you're the entrepreneur, the small business owner, but that doesn't mean that you'll do everything in your business. So who will run and operate your business? Is it you? So my business, it was me. But maybe it's an employee. Maybe you hire a manager and you're not there every day, or you're not hands-on. You own the business, but you rely on someone else. How many staff or team members do you need? I mean, you got to figure this out, right? Do you need to hire 3 people or 23 or 103? I mean, depends what business you're opening, but you really need to sit down and figure out how many people you'll need. Your employees will be one of your largest expenses, but you need them to operate. So you don't want to obviously spend more than what you need, but you don't want to be short on staff and have that cause other issues, because that will cause issues in a lot of businesses. If you don't have enough people, you're not going to be able to get things done. You must ensure that you have the right employees that fit in with your culture to succeed. I'm going to just say this again. You need to hire the right people. If you don't start out with the right people, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're doomed, because if you don't have people that believe in your culture and your mission statement and your values, it's not going to work out. And no one cares about your business as much as you do. And you'll have great employees. You'll have people that really care, but no one cares as much as you, right? Because for you, it's live or die, excuse me. But for them, for a lot of people, it's a paycheck. So you really need to get the right people on board. So when we're talking about tasks and roles, how will you divide up the employee tasks and roles? Depending on the type of business you have and how many employees you have, you may need to create management roles within your structure. So obviously, the larger your structure or your business is, the more complicated that structure is going to be. Will you do employee evaluations? And how often will you do them? I would strongly suggest you plan these minimum once a year. But I mean, if you can do them twice a year, that's fantastic. And sit down with your staff and tell them, this is what you really do great. This is what we can work on. And get feedback from them too. What do you like about your role? What do you dislike? Is there something that you aspire to do? Because really having employees that are engaged and happy is going to take you very far. You want them to be engaged and happy. What is your organization structure? So will you have departments, or are you just going to have one big team or one small team? Do you have a president, a CEO, someone responsible for finances, HR, marketing? Are you defining these? Are you doing everything? When I first started out, I was the salesperson, the marketer, the janitor, the bookkeeper. I mean, I did as much as I could at the start, frankly, to save on expenses. I mean, when I first started out, I had an idea of how much money I was going to make, but it was projections. So I didn't want to spend money on paying someone to clean when I could clean, right? As I grew, I hired more staff and I paid others to do the tasks that were not my strength. I don't like finances. I paid someone to do my books and to submit my taxes and do my payroll, because that was a daunting task that I hated doing. And it was easier for me to pay someone than to do it myself. So if you don't know what you're doing, you better spend the money on someone that does and put your efforts into activities that make you money. So for me, when I first started out, I think I paid my bookkeeper $500 a month. She did my books, my tax remittances, my payroll. And instead of me spending hours doing that, I could spend hours selling or training a new employee or marketing or doing something that actually made me money. So I was better off, right? Yeah, I'm paying her, but I'm ahead somewhere else. Will you have a team of managers? Just one manager? A few managers? Obviously, that depends on the size of your business, but it's always important to have someone, I'll say, who's in charge. So in the event that you're not there, you need someone that's going to step up, right? If there's a problem, if there's something that needs to be solved, you need someone responsible for that, because otherwise it'll just be like, oh, it's not up to me, and no one will take care of it. And you don't want that. What's your management style? So I ask this a lot of people, and they say, oh, I'll just manage people how I want to be managed. Well, that's not a style, I can tell you, first of all. And it shows that a lot of people don't think about this before they actually have staff. And then they kind of try to retroactively figure it out. And it's going to be so much easier if you do it before you have staff or before you add staff, because honestly, it's confusing to your employees and to you too. I mean, you need to figure out what type of management style is truly your style and then go with it. So I ask people, can your employees make decisions on their own, or do you need full control? And I'm going to go through a whole bunch of management styles, but that's a really important question, because if you need full control, your management style is much different than if you give your staff or your team the power to make decisions themselves. Your personality, your mission statement, the company culture that you're developing or have developed will all reflect your management style. And it will impact the type of employees you hire as well. Because if you want people that are able to have the power to make their own decisions, you need people that's their personality and that's their strength, is to make their own decision and not look at you to tell them what to do. So there are many styles and ways to manage people, and you need to understand your style to be able to operate smoothly. A good thing to remember, the employees you hire will likely believe in the same approach as you do. Honestly, if not, things likely will not work out with them, as they won't understand why you do the things you do. That causes disgruntled employees. If they don't understand things, if you're not transparent, if they don't know why you do the things you do, oftentimes there will be negativity or hostility, because if they don't understand it, they don't know the reasons behind it, then they can't often get behind you, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of the management styles. It's a lengthy list here, you guys, but it's important that you recognize your style. Obviously, no type is better or worse than the other, but it's what you are, right? And it may be a combination of more than one. So most of the time when I talk to people about this, I go through the list. They're like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. And they know their style or kind of combo of styles real quick. So I'm going to go through, I think there's about 10 here or so, but I'm going to go through, figure out which one's you. And then, that's your style. That's how you're going to manage and lead people, right? It's leadership. It's not telling people what to do. It's leading them. And it's creating that environment and atmosphere that people want to work for you, because you're going to have a much better time if people want to be there. Okay, so autocratic style is a top-down approach. It's one-way communication. It's from bosses to employees. So I'm the boss. I'm telling you, this is what we're doing, and then they just do it. Authoritative is managers to dictate exactly what they require to do, and you'll get punished if you don't comply. So that's a little harder, but it works for some people, right? Persuasive style. So managers use their persuasive style to convince employees that the decisions that they're implementing are for the good of the team, the department, or the organization. So you might not have to convince, but you might have to portray. That might also be a word to use there. Paternalistic is the manager acts in the best interest of the subordinates at heart. And I think you should always have the best interest of your employees, but also your business, right? And sometimes those conflict, but hopefully they coincide. Democratic, managers encourage employees to give input in the decision-making process, but ultimately the manager is responsible for the final decision. Consultative is when managers ask for opinions and thoughts of their teams, and they consult with viewpoints of every member of the team. So, John, what do you think? Sally, what do you think? Tim, what do you think? And then they come together and figure it out. Participative is managers and staff are all active in the decision process. So let's sit down and have a brainstorming session and let's come to an agreement together. Collaborative style, the management creates an open forum for ideas. They're discussed extensively before making decisions on a majority rule. So the staff is also empowered to take ownership of outcomes, which can lead to increased engagement, innovation, and creativity. A transformational style is where the management is agile and growth focused. And that, honestly, a lot of industries, you just have to be that because you're growing and you're just expanding so fast that that's what you have to be focused on. The coaching style is managers see themselves more as a coach and their employees as valued members of the team. The laissez-faire style, really where managers just take a hands-off approach and you guys do what you need to do and I trust you. The delegative is the manager only presents the tasks, so assigns them, and they're still responsible for them to be completed successfully, but once it's assigned, the employees are empowered to do what they see fit. Visionary style, managers lead through inspiration of their staff. So yeah, there's a long list there. And I know for me, I'm a combination of a couple of them. I really said, do what you think I would do in a situation, because if I'm not there and you got to phone me and then I got to find an answer or I'm not available, I want problems or things to happen right away. So I really gave my staff a lot of autonomy. Okay, let's talk about the ownership and support of your business. So in your business plan, you need to talk about ownership. So who owns the company? Like, is it just you or do you have a partner? Do you have anybody else that has a vested interest? Do you have shares? How are you going to pay yourself? So are you going to pay yourself in shares or dividends or as an employee? So if you set yourself up as an employee, you will be eligible for government plans like employment insurance, maternity leave, but you have to still pay into those programs, right? So you need to take a deduction, the same as your staff that you'll do. If you don't set yourself up as an employee, you're not eligible for these, but then you don't have to pay into it. So I would say this is a time you need to talk to your accountant for more information on this, or possibly your financial advisor too, because they're the expert. And they're going to know what's going to be best for you, because that really is something that what is best for you is best for you. Okay, professional and advisory support. So what professionals will assist you along the way? So you're going to need a lawyer, and you're going to need an accountant, and you're going to need a bank account. You might need tech support. If you really have a technical business, you're going to need somebody to make sure that everything runs smoothly. Do you need janitorial staff? Are you doing that yourself? And who else might you need? You might have to hire somebody to make your website or make your social media accounts. So you have to think of that in your plan too. So if you're a new business, you need to set up the business legally with your government, which usually is federal and local, because you need to do things like tax collection and remittances. And let me tell you, you need to have this all set out when you first start, and you need to know, what day do my remittances need to be made? What day do I need to pay my taxes? When do I need to file my taxes? Figure that out, put it on the calendar. Don't get behind on these. If you start getting behind on your taxes and your remittances, the government will come after you. And you don't want to be owing the government money. They can literally freeze your bank account. You don't want to get in that spot. So set yourself up to succeed there. If you are hiring a bookkeeper or an accountant to do this stuff for you, like I did, you really rely on them, but even have them send you an email and say, Q4 taxes are filed, so that because you don't want to get behind. Okay, I want to talk about the operations strategy. So it's going to differ from retail to manufacturing to services, but really this is your day-to-day, your location, your atmosphere. So it's the environment and the atmosphere of your business. So are you going to be a really professional business? Are you going to be laid back? I mean, you go to businesses now, there's like a ping pong table in the staff room, right? Or you're going to be really professional. Everybody gets an office and that's how it is. What image will you give your clients and customers? Are you the fun store, the relaxed store, the organized store? What's your aesthetic, right? Like, are you high end or are you bargain? Because if you're bargain, you're going to look really different than if you're high end. That's a very different. Remember the Walmart and the Nordstrom's example I gave last time? What they advertise, it's the same as what your store looks like or what your business looks like. And that also comes down to even your branding, right? We're going to talk about branding another day, but it's all important. It all has to be the same. So you're one business that has one aesthetic. What's the physical layout of your business? So it's got to be easy for customers and clients to move around, find things, especially for a retail environment. You know that I had a clothing store and I wanted to make it really shoppable and really easy for people and not be just racks and racks and racks of clothes, because I knew a lot of people did not want to go through those things. So I had mannequins set up. I had a really easy layout of the store that they could literally make a giant loop of my store and just made it easy for them. Do you need to be inspected by health and fire authorities? And if so, how often? I mean, if you're a food business, health authorities are going to come. So you got to find out when they're coming, how often they're coming, what are the rules? You've got to follow that, right? Fire authority. I got a funny story for you. Literally 2 weeks before I closed my business, I went to an online only approach. The fire marshal came and told me that I had a fire extinguisher, but it was like behind a desk or in a cupboard or something. And I was in violation because it had to be like out so that somebody could just grab it. And he said, well, when was the last time your fire inspector was here? And I said, I've been here for 8 years and I've never once had the fire inspector come. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Naive, right? So I just didn't even think about it. Didn't even realize it. So make sure you know this so that when they come, they gave me a warning. I wasn't fined, but I mean, I could have gotten a fine for that, right? So you don't want to get into those situations. Do you offer special products or services to certain groups or anything that's additional to your regular offering? So if so, how will you plan, organize, and manage these things? That's even seasonal things, right? And I think I talk about that a little bit later, but just a little piece there. Will you give your employees further education and training to develop more skills and knowledge? So you better train your staff. I'm just going to tell you right now, you got to train your staff. But what about future? Are you training them on new things? Are you sending them to increase their knowledge? It could be online courses, could be in real life, could just be you talking to them, or maybe you have a company newsletter or something. What are you going to do there? Oh, here's seasonals. Will you offer items or services seasonally? So if you're product-based, what happens to those items when they're out of season? So if you have summer items, are you putting them on sale in the fall? Are you storing them? I mean, lots of businesses, it's the same stuff every year. If you're storing it, where are you storing it? And what's the cost of that? So make sure you realize that too. Clothing store, you put it on sale, you get rid of it, right? But lots of other places, it's the same stuff every year. What are you doing with that stuff? Okay, so your location now, moving on to location. Will you have a brick and mortar store? Are you just going to be online? Are you both? So where are you going to be located? Like, what's your physical address? Will you have more than one location? I mean, so many businesses now start out with more than one right off the hop. On the flip side, a huge thank you to our sponsor, Just For You Day Spa and Wellness. Just For You is Canada's premier day spa with 5 locations in Alberta and Saskatchewan. The award-winning luxury spa features Leah Reese cosmetics and iconic Betty jewelry that you can also purchase online. Visit www.justforyoudaySpa.com to book your service or to purchase a gift card. Sorry, will customers visit you? Will customers come to your business or not? Because some places not. lots of places you go to them or you virtually do it, or they never see your business. What will your lease or purchase costs be? Are there operating costs? And if there's operating costs, what are you responsible for paying for? Water, heat, electricity? So usually in a lease, you're paying so much per square footage for your space, plus your operating costs. So much per square footage for your water included, snow removal or maintenance, whatever it is. Something a lot of people don't think about is their parking. So for both your staff and customers, can somebody just pull up? Do they have to park far away and walk? I mean, this is going to impede people from coming, right? Or if you're paying your staff a minimum wage and they have to pay for parking, you might not attract the staff you want to attract. Back to the building. What if something goes wrong with the building? So who's responsible? Typically, it's the responsibility of the building's owner, but not always. What if you bought a building? Then it's your responsibility, right? And what are you doing? Do you have a maintenance person, or how are you dealing with those types of things? If you're leasing, who will pay for tenant improvements and renovations? So you can negotiate these things in your lease. And speaking of leases, I want to talk about that a little bit. So a lease is a business transaction. It is always negotiable. Negotiate your lease. If they tell you it's, $25 a square foot, you can negotiate that. Like, I never signed a lease without negotiating the cost. And if they want you there, on the flip side, if you want to be there, you probably go back and forth, but you don't just have to sign the offer that they give you. I can tell you that right now. So don't sign a lease without negotiating. Also, don't sign a lease without your lawyer reviewing it. And those are the two things that I'm saying right now you must do. Your lawyer has to review any document that you sign, and you have to negotiate things, because that are two things super important to business. And those are going to help you along the way. If you're paying less rent, that's more money for you to do with other things, right? And also on the lawyer side, you don't want to get into a lease that's a bad move for you, right? So always get them to read it over. And if there's something you want changed, say, I need to have this changed. And I never had, there was things that I was like, this doesn't work for me. And we maybe had to go back and forth, but it always worked out in my interest or best interest. What are your hours of operation? So what are your opening hours? Are you open 9 to 5? Are you open 10 to 10? Saturdays, Sundays, weekends, holidays? Like, what are you going to be open? So whatever you decide to, you have to stick with it on a daily basis. I'm not saying you need to have the same hours every day, but if you're open Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 9 to 5, you got to be open from 9 to 5. If you open late or you close early, people get mad. And I know this. I've been a customer too, right? You pull up, you're like, oh, it's 10-2. I just got to grab one thing. They close in 10 minutes. You go to the door, locked and black, and they're gone, right? Like, it's just like no lights are on, they're gone. That's so frustrating for people. So whatever your hours are, stick to them. And listen, there's going to be times a snowstorm's coming, someone's sick, there is an emergency. Put a note on the door. We're so sorry. Emergency, had to close early, whatever it is. Post it on your social media so people know not to come, but don't just lock the doors and leave. Okay, if you're in an office atmosphere, do you have office hours? Can your employees work from home, or maybe a mix of both? Remember COVID? Like, it taught us a lot about working remotely. It can save you a ton of money if you don't need an office space. On the other side of that, though, how do you deal with things if employees aren't doing as much work as they should? So how are you going to monitor and enforce that? Some employees are actually more productive in a non-office environment. I mean, we all have those people around the water cooler, lunchroom, whatever it is, get around and start visiting and can stand there and visit for half an hour. Well, if they're at home, they're probably working, right? Because there's no one to talk to. Let's talk more about employees. So what is your employee plan? And by this, I mean, how many staff do you need? Are they full or part-time? What do your team members look like, right? Like, how many do you need? Are you paying them hourly or salary? Hourly or salary? Wow. No editing here, folks. Just purely me talking. Well, you have seasonal employees. So do you bring more people on at Christmas time, let's say, or the summer when you're busier times? Are you going to pay a commission or bonuses? Will you offer benefits like medical? You really got to think about all this stuff because, as I said before, your employees are one of your highest costs, but also happy employees make for a better business. So make sure you really go through that. Government rules. Remember, you have to comply with government rules and regulations for employees. So for overtime, vacation pay, breaks, taxes, pension, all of that stuff, you got to follow the rules. So check with your government to make sure that you know what do you have to remit for payroll, what do you have to give someone for overtime pay or vacation pay. And these are non-negotiable. I mean, you have to treat your employees following the law. If you don't, close your doors right now because you're not going to be around for very long. And again, like if you're good to your employees are good to you. So just have things right off the bat, starting out the right way. Do you need a workers' compensation account? So if you have staff in a physical building, you need workers' comp. So you got to set up an account and pay into that. And same thing with the taxes. Make sure you're paying that bill, right? Who's going to do your payroll? Who's going to pay the employees? So who's taking off all their taxes, paying them, remitting the taxes? Who's going to keep track of vacation and days off, sick days, right? So will you use a system? I mean, there's so many different options for that. Literally, you can use pen and paper. Depends how many staff you have, right? You're going to want a system if you've got more staff. But do your research because some of these things are really expensive and some aren't. And some are really easy to use and some aren't. So take a look at that. Find what's best for you. Will your staff receive a discount on your products or services? So are you giving them a deal? Are they required to use? So for me, I had a clothing store, right? They had to wear the clothes that we sold from my store while they worked. So they got them at cost. I mean, they had to wear them. That was a rule because they're a walking mannequin, right? But I didn't make money off of them. They just paid for the clothes. What's your total employee payout in a year and can you afford that? So remember, one of the highest costs. If you don't know what it is, then work backwards. So figure out how many team members you need, what you're going to pay them, either hourly or yearly, and literally just add that all together. It seems simple, but most people don't do this, and then they struggle to meet their payroll. Your lease and your payroll are your two highest expenses. So you need to be sure that you can pay for them. If you can't pay your lease or your payroll, your doors will close, or your virtual doors will close if you don't have brick and mortar. But you have to be able to pay your staff, right? If you don't pay them, they're gone. You need them. I talked a little bit about training. So what about training? So what type of training and mentorship will you have? Remember, you're a leader. You're not just the boss. You're leading people. You're mentoring them, or the other people in the organization that can mentor. Do your employees need to sign an NDA or a confidentiality agreement? They might have to. I mean, especially things like medical, things that are private. It's important, right? Do you have an employee handbook or a reference for all of your guidelines and rules and regulations? What about a training manual when people first start? So I have an HR degree. I had both of these. They were very extensive because I had an HR degree. But it ensured that all of my employees, like the training manual, every staff member went through that training manual with me. Like I trained them because they were all trained the exact same way. The handbook, the employee handbook, that told them what I expected from them and what they could expect from me. So I was super transparent with my employees and they were all trained the same. So they all knew what was going to, training, they knew the brands and they knew how to use the POS system at checkout. Like if you have somebody that doesn't know how to use your POS system for a customer, that's really frustrating. They have to know, or they don't know what they're talking about. You need to train your staff. They need to know what to expect from you. And also you need to set out some rules and some guidelines. What's acceptable, what's unacceptable. Because if it's stated there, and I got them to all sign it, right? So if anything ever happened that they did something that was not acceptable, I could say, you were aware of this. It's a problem. We need to fix it, right? It helps them. It also helps you. So are you going to be transparent with your employees and give them kind of all the information or just a little information? You got to really figure out how much are you telling your staff. I was transparent. It built trust and loyalty in employees. And I mean, I had a clothing store. Like, what was I hiding? But better off to just let them know, I felt. Okay, like that is a lot of information. I know that it's a process to do your business plan, but by going through all of these points, it's not only going to illustrate your operations and employee strategies in your business, but it's going to give you a plan moving forward that will set you up for success. So I'm going to stop today. That's all I'm having for today. I'll wrap up the business plan episodes with one more on financials. Be sure to follow us on social media for more info. For things I went over today, send me a message if you have questions. I am here to help you. I've lived it. I breathed it. I slept it. I did everything. And if I don't know the answer, I'll send you to somebody that will. Thank you guys so much for listening. Whether you were in Walla Walla or New York City, I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for listening to Winning. Be sure to subscribe to get all of our new episodes. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and leave a rating and review wherever you listen to Winning. To catch all of the latest from us, you can follow Winning Podcast on Instagram at winning_podcast, Facebook at Winning Podcast, and on Twitter at Winning Pod. Winning was created and is produced by me, Mackenzie Kilshaw. Music created by Summer Furby. Editing by Seth Armstrong. Special thanks to Shauna Foster for voicing our opening. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.